Welcome back to Briggs on Books, where I get to talk to authors from all over the world every day. I have the best job in the world. I love books, I love authors, and hearing where their ideas came from, how they got a book written. I mean, how do they even get it written and completed and published? Something I haven't been able to do yet. Our next guest, Dr. Hedberg, has done it more than I think any of our other guests. Dr. Allan Hedberg, psychologist.
That's right.
How many books do you have?
Well, I have about 16 of them now.
16 books now.
I think I've done most of them with you.
Yeah, I think you've been on this show, and we've looked at every single book. By the way, before we get too far, I just want to show the cover of your... Is this your most recent book?
This is the most recent. Two weeks ago it came out. Deep Roots of Wisdom. I thought that was a very excellent topic for the day in which we live. Mm-hmm. And kids are making decisions and choices that they need help in thinking things through. Parents need help in how to raise their children and how to organize a family life and so on. And Deep Roots of Wisdom gives advice in just all phases of life, all spheres of life, drawing from a lot of different people in history.
Hate to say it this way, but we used to have wisdom from Grandpa.
You know, that was the case of our life. You know, we have a culture that's changed. I grew up in a culture that my father gave me various kinds of statements that, now I look upon as being wise statements. I remember him saying to me, "Don't run up the stairs and don't run down people." That was a piece of good advice, right? And I always have remembered that. And he had a lot of these kind of what we call truisms. Mm-hmm. And I think kids grew up in my day having parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles and extended family, who talked and who gave advice and who gave suggestions and helped kids grow up. Yeah. But we live in a day today which is now different. We have a different culture today. Kids don't have a parent. Right. They often don't have a father, actually. Mm-hmm. They don't have grandparents, or they have maybe one grandparent, or maybe 2 out of the 4, or 2 out of the 6. And they don't have that wisdom that comes from age, that comes from the adult world. So they don't have it. I gave this book the other day to a kid who was about 20 years of age. And he says, I have never seen anything like this before. And that struck me as being a truism of the day in which we live. And the kid living in a world today that nobody gives them advice.
Right. Now, what's the structure of the book? Is it a list of wise sayings?
Yeah, it's a list of wise sayings. I do it by topics.
Okay.
And what I've done is I've graduated into the world of history, because I'm not a historian.
Yeah.
You are.
Yes.
But when I look at history, I look at people who made history, people who wrote history. Mm-hmm. And that's where my interest in history is all about. So I have this topic of marriage and family, all the wise statements that can help a marriage and family, help a businessman, help the corporate world, help the educator, the teacher, leadership coming from the military, drawing from all phases of life how we can do better in our own living, in our own life, and raising our own kids. This all started, Mike, back in the day when I read John Rockefeller. Very few people have read about him.
Yeah.
But I came upon his resolutions, the things which he organized his life around. He had 10 of them. And I put that in here, and I kind of identified that as being the keynote of the whole book. Where does it all start? Well, for me, it started with John Rockefeller, looking at the ways in which he organized his life. And I have a whole page just on him. Well, then I said, Jonathan Edwards, he had 72 resolutions in which how he organized his life. Then I went to George Washington. He had about 100 of them. But you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, and you do this instead, and all that. And he went through. I went through Abraham Lincoln. He has what he calls the 12 cannots. You cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. And so, great words of wisdom if you kind of follow his thinking. So I took all these great men from history and looked at how they organized their life. Now, obviously, it worked for them.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it work for you? Why wouldn't it work for me? Why wouldn't it work for the next kid coming along the way?
I maybe the big point is they all had something they're living by, a code.
Oh, that's kind of like putting on a suit of clothes. You had a code, and that's how you live your life.
Right.
The things you do, these are the things you don't do. And you have to have both of those, by the way.
Right.
When you look at wisdom, you got to have both. The guidance of what you do in life, but you also have the guidance of what you don't do.
Yeah.
And the people you avoid, and the situations you avoid, and things you stay away from. That's just as important as what you do.
Yeah. One of my biggest frustrations is I come across so many people who They just wake up and say, see what happens today.
Oh, you don't live that way.
There's no goal, there's no drive, there's no code, there's
no success.
No success.
There's no achievement at the end of the day, or the end of the year, or the end of the lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to change the world, you got to get up in the morning and make your bed. Remember, that's in here.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you start.
Make your bed.
And if you made your bed, then you go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And then you go on to the next thing. And you start with some goal. Very simple. And that's a goal. And then you move on to things that will be bigger and better, and obviously at some point in life you can change the world or have an impact on the world in which you live.
And these people in your book did. So
they are.
Rockefeller, yeah.
Mother Teresa, you know, she's in here. All of her wisdom and thinking about the advice that she gives people is in here. You know, the George Washington, the Abraham Lincolns, and the Rockefellers, and the Edwards, and all these people from history that just have contributed, you know, to us.
Do you have anything you could read to us? Anything you want to read to us?
Well, you know, if I can take any point and just say, okay, here's a piece of advice that I would say, you know, would be good for her. Here's John Wesley. Let me go to John Wesley. You know, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can.
As long as ever you can.
Now that's John Wesley.
Wesley.
Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of his advice. Now, if you take that and just live by that, and put everything else away, you would be a successful person.
Right.
Now, you would be a person who's desired and who want. You'd have friends. You'd have impact. You would have influence. You would have a happy life, and you would have things to be very happy about and grateful for and thankful for in your own life. Yeah.
By the way, I always ask this question, who's this book for? Who should have this book?
Well, I wrote it for parents. I wrote it for adults. But then after writing it, I saw that it really should be written for kids. So I say, okay, it was written for kids, even though I didn't know it at the time. And it should be, you know, for the kid who is 15, 20, 25, growing up, and needs some advice and needs some guidance in how to shape life. Because it's in the ages of 15 to 25 that you shape your life. And if you don't shape your life by that time, chances are you're not going to shape your life ever. You're going to be a kid all your life, right? Without a guidance and without a North Star, you know, to follow. So if you have a kid in your family that is in that age range of 14, 15, up to 25 or so, this is a book to buy for Christmas and give them and say, okay, read a page or two a day. You don't have to read the whole thing at one time. You read a little bit and then you read a little bit more. It's kind of like a quiet time. Read about it, think about it, and then plan to do it.
We've been having this theme this week on the show, Dr. Hedberg. It's that time of year where you're giving gifts.
Oh, absolutely.
And I give gifts. I don't even know I'm supposed to give them a gift. Somebody shows up at the house. It's Chris. Somebody invites me to dinner. I think, I got to take a gift.
I say buy two. Buy one for yourself, one to give away.
Don't go and click once. Click 10 of these on there. You'll have 10 people to give stuff to this season.
There you are.
And if you have any left over, find a neighbor kid and give it to them. Now, here's a thought I had. Because I had a good dad. He's still around. He's 90 years old. He's still giving me advice.
Yeah, there you are.
But we tend to reject our father's advice.
Well,
but wise old Dr. Hedberg comes along and, you know, puts this together, and all of a sudden, oh, wow, I really
You don't have a father. If you reject your father, then I'll be your father.
Be the father. So
read the book.
But it's just fun anyway. These old quotes and stuff are just fun anyway to collect and read and think about. So, and it's full of them, Dr. Hedberg.
Oh, yeah. You know, I draw from biblical scripture. I draw from history of education, history of government, history of the military history. I even go through all the presidents.
Successful people.
You know, as to the advice that they were giving.
Right. And the biggest point I want to reiterate, because you brought it to me, you didn't say it, but they had it. They all had something. It's not just like...
They had it to give away.
Yeah, they had it to give away.
And I always think of it the other way around. If you give something away, you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So give and take. Give and benefit.
Deep Roots of Wisdom. Now, I asked you if it's on Amazon, and I wanted the covers. I went there, typed Hedberg, which is hard to spell for some of us, Hedberg.
Yeah.
Allan, A-L-L-A.
Just go to my name and
pop right up. In fact, all your books are there. Every book you've ever written.
Yeah, they're there. So take advantage of it. Buy a couple. I have books on parenting and books on health and how to live a healthy life and
how to be a parent.
Today's world of stress that we're in.
Yeah, it's a lot
wisdom.
Of
you know, here's the quote that I like to end with.
Okay.
It's Voltaire, and he said this: "Youth is a time to study wisdom." Okay, so that's where the youth idea comes in: is to study wisdom, And old age is the time to practice it.
Practice it. Yeah.
See?
Right.
And that's
Voltaire.
where we are.
Voltaire.
We're at the old age to practice wisdom, but the youth is the time to study it. Here's the way to study it. Read it, think about it, and incorporate it.
Right. By the way, I have a website on the screen, www.booksbyhedberg.com. Put in the www. He tells me every time, and I try to do it again without, but as soon as I put it in, it popped right up, and there it is.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Last thoughts, Dr. Hedberg?
Well, wisdom is really the basis of living an effective life. You've got to have a framework on which to base your life, to make decisions of what you do and what you don't do. This is a book that will guide you in the process of that and incorporating that in your own life. If you don't have a parent, then this becomes your parent of wisdom, you see. But hopefully you have a parent and this book together.
Right.
Gain from the wisdom of people who are older than you. As they practice wisdom, you learn. And then you will have a day to practice it and pass it on to the next generation. That's where wisdom comes in.
All right. From Dr. Hedberg, a wise man himself. This is Briggs on Books. Stick around because we're going to have another author coming up right after this.